How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I was planning to come back on here maybe Saturday. It's been a crazy week, not just with DallasBasketball.com, but the day job has been popping off, and I was sick last week. I've been getting over that, so I was planning on not coming back on here until the weekend, but the NBA trade deadline has a way of speeding up your timeline, and I had to come on here and talk about the day that the Mavs had here on Thursday, February 8th, ahead of the deadline. I mean, look, there's a lot of people that when I write trade scenarios and, different targets the Mavs are going after and all that stuff. Oh, why are you doing that? Well, that's never going to happen. The Mavs aren't going to make a move. This is why I do it. You never know. You never know what can happen. And, Nico Harrison has shown that he's going to be aggressive. He's been aggressive since day one on the job. The first year he traded Kristaps Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie, Davis Bertans. Mavs made a Western Conference Finals run off of that. The following year, the second year, he flipped Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith and a pick for Kyrie Irving. And now this season, and there's been moves in between too. Now we're not going to talk as much about the free agency mishaps that have gone on, but so the big swing before this year's deadline, there were two of them that happened on Thursday. The first one we'll talk about was Daniel Gafford. That was the first news to break. The Mavs, they're trading Rashawn Holmes and draft compensation. They did some pick swapping with the Oklahoma City Thunder or whatever, but basically the Wizards are getting Rashawn Holmes in a first-round pick, and the Mavs are getting Daniel Gafford. So, a guy we've talked about in the past has a similar play style to Derek Lively. There's been some talk about, will Daniel Gafford start? Will Lively start? Doesn't matter. They both play around the same minutes per game, whether, whoever starts, whoever finishes, whatever the case may be. The big thing here is the Mavs have a legitimate center rotation now. You have two guys who are extremely athletic. They can rebound the basketball. They can block shots. They can finish around the rim at an elite rate. And now you've got a full 48-minute rotation of those type players, assuming Lively can stay healthy. And that's the other thing about Gafford. He's played 45 out of 50 games for the Wizards this year. So, that was the first domino to fall. And it's like, okay, that's amazing, because we've talked about how the Mavs desperately need to upgrade not just their center position, but, their front court in general. And they started by getting that second center in Daniel Gafford. So I'm super excited. He's only 25 years old. And let's see here. I'm going to pull up some Daniel Gafford stats for you guys, and then we'll get into the second move too, because I'm sure if you're watching this by now, because I had to wait until I got off of work to post this, but if you're watching this by now, surely you've already caught up on all the moves that have happened. But anyway, in 45 games for the Wizards this year, Daniel Gafford, 10.9 points, 8 rebounds, 1.5 assists, shooting 69% from three. Also averages 2.2 blocks per game and 1 steal per game. And he's doing all that in 26.5 minutes per game for the Wizards. Like, he's just the ideal pairing. I'm not going to say backup, because I'm not sure if he's going to be a backup or not, but either way, he's just an ideal pairing with, swapping minutes with Lively. This is amazing. This is something that fixes a huge weakness, in my opinion, that the Mavs had. Now, the defense overall still has to be better. And, the Mavs are going to have to prove that they can play better defense just because they got bigger, because these guys aren't considered, overall outstanding defenders, but you got more rim protection, you got more rebounding. And then on to the second move that came up on our timelines after the Gafford stuff. PJ Washington. After all the speculation, over the summer we were talking about how the Mavs should have tried to do a sign and trade for Washington instead of Grant Williams. The Grant Williams stuff, for whatever reasons, just did not work out. Wasn't a great fit. Had a great 10-game start of the season, but has been, for the most part, awful, since then. He's had a couple of good games in that stretch, but it just didn't work out. And after all the speculation, all the trade rumors leading up to this deadline, PJ Washington is a Dallas Maverick now. The Mavs they traded Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a first-round pick for PJ Washington. It's a lightly protected 2027 first-round pick, I believe. So, that obviously helps a lot. PJ Washington, I mean, I know most of y'all probably don't watch a lot of Hornets basketball. I don't watch a lot of it myself, but I've found myself watching more of it here in the last several weeks, with the Mavs being linked to PJ Washington. This is going to help the Mavs a lot. Now, look, he is not having a great season shooting percentage-wise, based on what he's done in the past. The last, he's shooting a career low 32.4% from three this season. He shot 35% last year, 65.5 the year before. Not 65, 35, 36.5. Let me regroup here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm excited. I'm talking over myself. Just hold on just a second. So, last season, PJ Washington shot 34.8% from three. The year before, 36.5%. The year before that, 38.6%. Then his rookie year, it was 37.4%. So I kind of feel like this year has been an outlier year for him. He has seemed kind of checked out for the most part with the Wizards. He did have that really explosive 43-point game with them at the end of January. But, overall, the 13.6 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 2.2 assists, nearly one steal and one block per game, and shoots 44.6% overall in 29.2 minutes. So you have your starting power forward now. An underrated aspect of this trade deadline, in my opinion, for the Mavs, is they upgraded two major spots, the starting four and the backup center, without having to trade Josh Green. You didn't have to trade Josh Green. You didn't have to trade Jaden Hardy. I think they actually ended up getting a couple of second-round picks in the Gafford deal, if I'm not mistaken. So, you had to trade first-round picks. They got a pick from OKC that they ended up trading in the Rashawn Holmes for Gafford deal. But that really was, there's a lot of different ways you can look at this, but the main thing is the Mavs upgraded. They got their starting four, they got their backup five, and they didn't have to, sell on their young players that have potential in Josh Green, in, Jaden Hardy. You got Omax, who has looked great in the G League for the Texas Legends. He hasn't really gotten a real chance to shine with Jason Kidd. You hold on to him as a future contributor or a future asset that you can use. And then, during the summer, you have potential on draft night. When draft night is over, you potentially have the opportunity to trade two more first-round picks going forward. So overall, and look, even with the lack of draft assets, now you have some real nice tradable assets on good contracts if it doesn't work out the way you hope it does. That you can use in a big move for a third star at some point if you want to do that. But I don't think it's going to come down to that. I think the Mavs have a pretty complete team right now. I think this is going to turn out really well for them in the long run. Now, obviously, everybody's got to get integrated. You have to build chemistry. You have to, figure out what combinations, what lineups work. But this is something that I think could propel the Mavs into a solidified playoff spot. They're right now they're in 8th, and they're about 2 games out of 6th. And they're also 2 games out of 5th as well. But this is something in the last 30 something games of this season. I think this is going to propel them into a solidified playoff spot, especially if they can stay healthy. Luka, Kyrie. I mean, look, your projected starting lineup for the Mavs now is Luka, Kyrie, Josh Green, PJ Washington, and Derek Lively. And then off the bench, you still have Tim Hardaway Jr. and his bench scoring, even though his defense is bad. When he's on, he's on. That's another thing, too. Maybe this is good for Tim Hardaway Jr. because the Mavs don't have to rely on him as much. They don't have to rely on him to, be a streaky shooter to win games. They have more options now, and that is a very big deal. That's a big deal, and it's gonna do wonders for Luka and his usage rate. Even if he has the ball in his hands a lot, having more talent around him is going to lessen his load. And it's going to lessen Kyrie Irving's load, too. This is going to be all around a really good sequence of deals for the Mavs. I truly believe that. Like Nico Harrison, everybody doubts him coming into each deadline. And I kept telling people, I'm like, look, this guy is aggressive. He's not just going to sit there and, after what we've seen in the first part of this season, knowing this team has severe deficiencies and, spots that need to be addressed, he's not going to sit there and just let it go by and then just, waste the rest of the year. He was going to make a move. He's aggressive. He's made a trade deadline move every year since being hired. And he's probably going to make more moves in the summer. He is an aggressive general manager, and I am not shocked by this at all. I'm pleasantly surprised that, it wasn't just a trade for a starting 4, and they actually did go and get not just a really good backup center, but a young one. A young backup center. And let's see, PJ Washington is 25. Daniel Gafford is 25. That's the big thing, too. Not only did you get bigger, longer, you've got more talent overall, but you stayed young. You've got 2 guys who are just entering their primes. They're right in line with Luka's timeline, and they fill specific needs that you sorely needed. So just bravo, Nico Harrison. I know they have to go on the court and have tangible results for us to, truly tip our hat and say, hey, this was a success. But on paper and what we've seen from both of those players they got, individually, what they bring to the table, I don't see how this isn't going to be a huge win for the Mavs. Like the general consensus on NBA Twitter among all different fan bases, from what I've seen in national media and everything, the general consensus from what I can see is that the Mavs and the Knicks won the trade deadline, which is funny because both teams play tonight at Madison Square Garden. But, the Knicks, they had a lot of activity. They got Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic, and they really solidified their roster today as well. But man, it's going to be something. Now the Knicks, OG Anunoby, he's out with an elbow injury. He's actually having a procedure done on that elbow, and he's going to be out for 3 more weeks. Jalen Brunson is questionable for the game tonight. Don't know if he's going to be playing. Julius Randle, who always kills the Mavs, is out. So, Quentin Grimes got traded. So the Knicks are going to be very short-handed tonight. Jalen Brunson still might play, but even if he does, they're going to be short-handed, and we'll see how it goes. But, man, what a trade deadline day. And it might not be over. You know, the trade deadline itself is over, but there's another wrinkle that we have to keep an eye on because, okay, the Mavs got their starting four, they got their backup center. What else do they need? Well, we know they could use a third ball handler. And Spencer Dinwiddie got traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Toronto Raptors today and immediately got bought out because the Raptors didn't want to be on the hook for that $1.5 million bonus he gets for the games played. So they bought him out of his expiring contract, and the Mavs are one of 3 or 4 teams who are trying to pursue Spencer Dinwiddie on the buyout market. And Spencer Dinwiddie, he shot 46% from the field and 40% from three when he was in Dallas. Both of those by far career highs for him. He was a part of that three-headed point guard monster of Luka, Brunson, and himself that went to the Western Conference Finals. You can't tell me that it's not a little bit enticing for Dinwiddie, who will be an unrestricted free agent going into this summer now. You can't tell me it wouldn't be incredibly enticing for him to come back to Dallas, be plugged into that same role he was in when he made the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Except this time, instead of it being with Brunson, you have Luka, Kyrie, and Dinwiddie. And you also have an upgraded front court. You know, that the reason that team lost to the Golden State Warriors, in my opinion, was because of Kevon Looney. You know, they couldn't do anything with him. And obviously Andrew Wiggins had a big part of it as well. But, you know, Looney was just killing them on the boards. And they just didn't have the defensive anchors. You know, Dwight Powell and company, they weren't able to hold up against that team. So that was the biggest issue. So now if you roll out a 3-guard lineup of Luka and Kyrie starting, and then you have Dinwiddie coming off the bench, you know, that keeps Tim Hardaway Jr. from having to overdo it, puts him in a better role, I think, as well. And then you have guys like Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Josh Green, who has developed to a point that he wasn't at when that Western Conference Finals run was happening. You know, just a lot of different moving pieces. Is Maxi Kleber finally healthy? He certainly looks like it these last several games. He's another big body you can throw in there if you need him. So overall, this has just been a great trade deadline for the Mavs, in my opinion. You know, some people might not feel that way, but there's a lot of upside to this. You know, even if it's not, even if it doesn't reach its full potential, there's no denying that there is a ton of upside to the moves the Mavs made today. And if they add Dinwiddie into the mix, a guy who has proven that he can excel in Dallas, playing with Luka and in Jason Kidd's system, having career highs, hitting big shots. He had 30 points in that Game 7 against the Suns 2 years ago. You add him into the mix on a buyout, because now the Mavs have an open roster spot because they traded 3 players for 2. Now you've really got something, and it really gets interesting. So we'll see how it goes. So far, so good. Super excited for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford in Dallas. This is something that we have been speculating on. We have been talking about all the rumors for weeks now, months, really. These are 2 names that have been linked to the Mavs forever, and sure enough, Mavs went out there and made it happen. And I'm super excited to see when those guys get on the court. It might be as early as Saturday when the Mavs play their 2 p.m. tip-off game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Maybe not, though. It might be a little too soon. I guess we'll see when the trades officially go down and the guys have to do their physicals and all that good stuff. So we'll see how it all goes. But either way, it's coming. It's coming. The PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford era has officially begun, or it's on the cusp of beginning in Dallas. And I think there's some really fun times ahead. There's going to be a lot of lobs to Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, and probably PJ Washington too. I mean, the Mavs might be the new Lob City but instead of CP3, CP3 and JJ Redick, you have Luka and Kyrie. So maybe there can be better postseason results because of that. So, guys, look, I appreciate y'all joining me. Had to come on here and do this quick emergency pod. Like I said, I initially planned on waiting until Saturday, but when stuff like today happens and there's multiple big moves, you have to come and talk about it. I mean, it's crazy. There's nothing like the NBA trade deadline rush. It's one of a kind. It's one of the most exciting times of the year, and the lead up to it is always fun as well. So it's over. No more trades until at least the off season. But we'll be back, and we'll be talking about free agency and all that good stuff when we get to that point. So, guys, I appreciate it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Appreciate all the love and support. This channel has grown. The YouTube channel has grown so much over the last year, like from last year's trade deadline to now. It's really kind of crazy how much we have grown since then, and that's all because of y'all. And I appreciate y'all coming and listening to us talk about the Mavs every single week. And be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms, not just YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave us some reviews there if you don't mind. Really helps us out. And we will see you next time. The Mavs play the Knicks, and then they play OKC on Saturday. I will be back on here probably Saturday evening after that OKC game with my guy Grant Afseth, and we'll recap the trade deadline and these next two games coming up that will already be completed by then. So, guys, I appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your Thursday, and y'all have a great weekend if I don't talk to you before Saturday evening. We'll see you next time.